Google Tag Manager. You want to know what it's all about? Want to get started using the tool and deploy tracking with it? You came to the right place. Hi there, my name is Julian and I have trained thousands of marketers over the past years to use GTM effectively. And in this full GTM beginners course, I'm going to show you what you can do with Google Tag Manager, what it's all about, how to set it up, to deploy your marketing tags and send data to tools like Google Analytics 4 or the Facebook ad system. And during that, I'm going to show you some best practices in tag management as well. If you're interested in any of these topics and want to skip forward, you can do so. Down below, we have all the timestamps that you would need. And you don't just have to sit there and watch all of these videos one by one, but you can actually participate with a few quizzes that I've prepared for you for each section. Just check them out at measureschool.com/GTM quiz and follow along. And we got lots to cover. So yeah, let's dive in. Google Tag Manager, a tag management system from Google. It solves the simple problems for us marketers. We frequently need to install tracking onto our website in order to determine success of our campaigns, to track the sources that the user came from, or what users are doing on our website. In order to do that, we need to oftentimes install a tracking script onto the website itself. And these are also called marketing tags. Now previously, you might have gone into your code editor and added the script, customized them to your needs, and then quickly lose the overview of how many tags you have already installed and what they're actually doing. Can get quite confusing. With Google Tag Manager, you actually only install one central snippet onto your page, and henceforth, all your different tracking codes are deployed through a graphical user interface of Google Tag Manager. You just need to determine the data that you want to send over in your tags, then create triggers, which are basically rules when your tags actually should fire, and configure your tags that are then sent over to your marketing vendors. If it's all set up, Google Tag Manager deploys your tracking code in the background. But there are many more advantages to Google Tag Manager, like a version control system, a preview mode so you can test your tags before going live with them, and a management functionality to keep an overview of everything. Overall, you can be way more flexible, granular, but also more organized in your managing of your marketing tags with Google Tag Manager. Here we are inside of the Google Tag Manager interface, but before we get started with everything that's going on in here, let me show you a little example here. So oftentimes tools like Google Analytics or Facebook ask us to install some tracking code. And oftentimes they give us a little bit of JavaScript code, and that is something we then need to install onto our website. So actually into the code of our website. Google Analytics does the same. So here we have the global site tag that we need to install. And for that example, I have created a website right here. And if we look into our little tools that we have available inside of the Chrome extension store, you can see here that the global site tag is already installed and also the Facebook pixel. Now, when I right click and view page source, you can see where I've placed these codes. So we have the little JavaScript code from Facebook here, and we also have the global site tag here from Google. Now, when we go back to the page and switch over to my second example here, we can see that we have a little slightly different interface here, but at the same time, we can look into our extension and we see we have the same codes installed right here and also a PageView pixel from Facebook. But if we right click and view page source, we don't really see our different codes here anymore from Facebook, but rather a big Google Tag Manager snippet. And this is what the snippet is all about and Google Tag Manager really all about. It consolidates all our different tracking codes into a little tool called Google Tag Manager. And henceforth, we can deploy all our different tracking codes, also called tracking tags, through Google Tag Manager and this little snippet. So we don't really have to touch the code anymore and can dive into Google Tag Manager from now on. So what Google Tag Manager gives us is a central management interface, an interface that we can deploy our tracking tags through. So if I go over to tags here, we can see all of the different tags that we have installed, and they're actually not code. There are tracking templates that you can install and can see on a visual interface how to configure them. So here we go. Here we have our Facebook pixel, and we just need to put on our Facebook pixel ID. And henceforth, here are some more configurations, but at least we don't have to dig through the code anymore to make this actually work. And Google Tag Manager brings tons of more functionality into the system. We can actually go here to preview, which will put our browser and only our browser into a special mode that we can connect to our website. And once it's connected, we can actually see what tags are deployed on our page. So here we can see our Facebook pixel was deployed, our Google Analytics 4 tag. And if we jump around on the page itself, we should be able to see that this is installed on all the pages. So this preview mode can be quite handy when we want to debug tracking and find any errors in it or see what's going on under the hood. That is obviously far harder than trying to dig through the code here inside of our browser. Now, Google Tag Manager is obviously a management tool of tags, and here we can always get a great overview of what is actually installed on our website. We can give tags a name, we know which tag type it is, and then we have our fire and triggers. These tags all fire on a all pages trigger, which means this tag that we configured should deploy on all the pages. But Google Tag Manager is actually pretty great in handling any kind of exception. So if you only wanted to fire a tag on a special page or even on interactions. So let me take you through a little tag deployment here. Let's say we wanted to track if somebody clicks on this Add to Cart button. How would we be able to build that into Google Tag Manager? So first of all, let's go ahead and define the trigger. As I already said, we wanted to fire it on the Add to Cart button. So I'm going to go over to triggers here, create a new trigger, which fires on a click event for our Add to Cart. And as the tag configurations, we can see all of the different events or interactions that you can track with Google Tag Manager, also like form submissions or scroll depth, but we'll go with the click all elements here. And then we go with some clicks because we don't want to fire it on all the clicks, but only where the click text contains Add to Cart. Let's save this. And now we have a trigger, a rule prepared that we can attach to a marketing tag. So let's say we wanted to transfer that information over to Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and click here on new, and we have our Facebook pixel for our click, and this will be Add to Cart. Well, actually, let's call this event. And now we choose from our tools here, and we have many different tools available, templates that let us just get and input the configurations of a tag rather than digging through code. So I'm going to choose the Facebook pixel here. And now I need my Facebook pixel ID. So let's go over to the ads manager here and copy my pixel ID. Paste that in here. And then as the event, this should be not a PageView event, but an Add to Cart event. That's what I want to send over to Facebook. Now I just need to configure my trigger, which we have already prepared, and click Save. Now this is not yet installed on our website. We can actually control our tracking first and see what it does and how it behaves on our website by entering again our preview mode. So we'll connect to our website. And let's go ahead and view this product again. And add this to cart. Now in our tag assistant, we should be able to find here in the stream of different interactions and the different events that happen, the click event. And here we go, our Facebook event pixel fired Add to Cart. Now we didn't quite test this yet. Let's go ahead and clear this activity and test this in our demo shop. So let me go ahead and add something again to the cart. Let me reload this one first. And I'm going to add to cart again. Our tag assistant should show us that something has fired. Here we have our click and our Facebook event pixel fired. And then in our events manager, we see now an add to cart was sent over to Facebook. Since we have now shown that everything is working and our tracking deployment is something we want to bring live to the website, we can go ahead and publish a version. Because right now, our tracking is not yet deployed on the website itself. It just works for our browser, which obviously is great for testing. But once it's time to go live, we also need to have a method to do this inside of Google Tag Manager. And there's a best practice of first testing your tracking and then deploying it on the website. So here we can go ahead and use the version control system to submit a version and give this a name. And then publish it live to the website. And henceforth, all the users who click on the Add to Cart button will be tracked via our implementation of the Facebook pixel. The great thing about this version control system is that at any point in time, you can actually go back to the old version if you find out that something is wrong with your tracking deployment, just like in a development cycle of a website. But obviously, there is way more to Google Tag Manager than what we went through just now. And we'll go over this in the next lessons. So for that, I'm already on the marketing side of Google Tag Manager. But actually, when you use Google Tag Manager, you will access it by going into tagmanager.google.com. And here you are, first of all, greeted to sign in. You can sign in with any kind of Google account. So this could be your YouTube account, this could be your Gmail account. And if you don't have a Google account, then I trust that you will be able to create one right here. I already have my demo account right here, and we are going to log in, and we are inside of Google Tag Manager. If you do this for the first time, you probably greeted with this screen where I actually wanted to get to, because here's where we are going to create our account and our container. Google Tag Manager is made up of accounts and containers. And an account is simply a collection of containers. Now, what are containers? Containers are the snippets that you install onto your website. So a good naming convention would actually be to use your company name. So for example, Demo Inc. And then you can choose the country. This is especially important for privacy reasons. You might want to choose something in Europe if you need to adhere to certain standards here. I'm just going to leave this at United States, and I'm going to share my data anonymously with Google as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and use as a container name my website. So in our case, it would be demoshop.com. This is where I'm going to install this. You don't have to put any URL here, but in order, if you have multiple of these containers, to distinguish them, you will be able to do this with this easy naming convention. And then you choose your target platform. So you can install Google Tag Manager on web platform, iOS, Android, AMP, and server side. But we are in this tutorial going to choose web because this series is concentrating on web users. But check out our other tutorials where we go into some of the other platforms here as well. So we're going to create this here, and then we have a terms of service agreement. You can read through this and then also accept. Let's click yes here. And we have set up Google Tag Manager, at least the account portion, because now we need to install our snippets. This is very important in order for us to deploy codes through Google Tag Manager. So we are straight away greeted with installing Google Tag Manager onto our website. These are the snippets that you need to install. If you don't see this, or if you want to join us here from a different account, you can always find your container snippets by clicking up into the GTM ID right here, or going into the admin section and then installing your Google Tag Manager option. So here we have these two codes, and they need to be placed onto your website. Now, these are the last, hopefully the last codes that you ever need to install onto your website, because henceforth we can do our tag deployments through Google Tag Manager. Now, obviously, this would require a little bit more wider access to your website itself to then place this high up in the head section and then also underneath the opening body tag. So we have two kind of snippets here that we need to install. To give you an example, I have my demo shop here, which it runs on the CMS WordPress. Now, WordPress is a very well-known and widely used CMS, but you might use something completely different. So the steps will actually differ here. And even within platforms, you have different ways of installing Google Tag Manager onto the platform. So for example, for WordPress, we can put it into the theme files, we could install a plugin, or we could write it into the functions PHP file. But once we install it, the outcome should really be the same. So on our website itself, if you go to right click and view page source here, we can see the HTML that gets downloaded from the server to your browser. And here we should see in the head section our GTM code number 1, and then also under the body section, which is further down here, right here, we should also see a second snippet. So how do we install this? With our WordPress website here, we have different ways of installing it. I'm gonna go through a way that is most applicable to most of the WordPress websites, but you could also put it into your functions PHP. So for that, we need to log into our website backend, and I already have this prepared here. We go to Appearances and then Theme Editor, and I'm gonna edit my theme here, but I have actually a child theme installed, so these changes that we are making are not overwritten by any kind of updates that go on in our main theme. And then I'm clicking here on the header PHP file, and here's where we are going to add our snippets. So we have here our opening head tag, and here's where the head starts. And then we also have our body tag somewhere. Where is it? Right here. And we need to place our codes now. So let's go ahead and copy this first code. And we need to put it as high up as possible into the head. So right here would be fine. And then also our second snippet that needs to go beneath the opening body tag. So we're gonna put this in here. Let's update our files. And then once it's installed, we should be able to actually inspect our HTML again. So the files were edited. Let's reload this and look into our page source. And now we see here our Google Tag Manager is installed, and at some point also our second snippet right here. All right, so we should have Google Tag Manager installed. How can we actually make sure that it's working? There's a little tool by Google called the Tag Assistant, and you can install it onto your Chrome browser. And here you would now see that Google Tag Manager is installed. When we click on it, we get this in yellow, which is not a good sign because we are still getting a 404 response from our snippet. This is because we haven't published a version yet from Google Tag Manager. So GTM is now installed, but not really getting any data back from Google Tag Manager. And that can be solved by going into our Tag Manager account. Let's go here to our workspace and then submitting a version. This will now be our initialization version. So we're not going to deploy any kind of tracking, but we're going to make sure that our container is ready to be used. And so I'm going to give this a name. Let's call this initialization. So just init. And I'm going to simply publish this onto our website. And we see here our version number 1 is now being published. We have 0 tags and 0 triggers and 5 variables, but no tracking has been deployed right here. So on our page, if we now reload this, we should see inside of our tag assistant that we at least get the blue sign, which is a good sign, sometimes even green, which would let us know that our tag manager is installed correctly. The third step that we can go through is to actually connect this to Google Tag Manager in our preview mode. And this will put our browser into a special mode where we can see what is going on the page relating to Google Tag Manager, but it also gives us the ability to preview any kind of changes that we have made in Google Tag Manager and in our tracking. So I'm gonna go here into the preview mode. This will put our browser into a special mode. We need to connect this to the website. So we put in our URL right here, and then click start, and this will connect now to our website. It will actually open it up in a new tab, and you see up here that it's connected because the fav icon actually changes, and this is now connected to this Tag Assistant tab as well. And here we already have some little bit of information. We see here we are currently on this demoshop.com site, and if we go and navigate on the page, we should get more information in here. And you need to make sure that Google Tag Manager is installed on any website that can be reached by the user. So click through your website and see if all of the pages actually show up and Google Tag Manager is installed correctly. If not, then you might have a problem with the theme or something is wrong in your plugin settings. Make sure that Google Tag Manager is installed correctly on every website of your web page in order to make sure that your tracking also gets deployed on every page later on. But this looks pretty promising and pretty good. So we have Google Tag Manager now installed. If you want to exit out of the Tag Assistant, you can just click this X here, stop debugging this, and we should be back to normal on our page as well. And we are now ready to deploy our first tag with Google Tag Manager, but that's what we're gonna do in the next lesson. And in this video, we're gonna take a look at how we can analyze our current implementation that we have on our page, so we know what we should migrate over to Google Tag Manager. And in order to have a proper plan of what we want to track, we are going to set up a tag plan. This is a crucial piece of information, not only for your planning of implementing tracking, but also for other people that might join your project later on. For example, a PPC manager. He might want to know what tracking is already set up, and with this crucial little document, you will be able to show him what you already set up and have documentation and proof that this is installed. Obviously, it's also really great to show your clients if you install tracking for them. But the real magic behind this little process is that you won't be setting up randomly some tracking and track data into your system and you end up with way too much data that you can't really do anything with. We will set up intentional tracking. Tracking that actually brings you value by tracking the right things that are important to you, and then be able to analyze the data later on in your system. So don't gloss over the step. Let's take a look at what I mean here. So we are here on our demo shop, and on our demo shop we already have tracking installed, and this is actually not through Google Tag Manager but hard-coded. We already saw that in our introduction. When I right click here and go to view page source, we see some tracking codes that are floating around on the page itself. Now you could look through all of the pages and all the source codes of all the pages on your site, but that would be a little bit cumbersome. So there are some tools that I could recommend to you which make it a bit easier. And these are Chrome extensions. So first of all, we have the Chrome extension by Google, the Tag Assistant Legacy, which there's a new version out, but the Legacy actually shows you these tags that are installed from Google on your page. So we have the global site tag, and this obviously is AW, which stands for AdWords. So there's something going on with AdWords. We have a global site tag, which deploys our Google Analytics 4 code. And then we have conversion tracking as well set up. So quite interesting information. We also have other tools. Obviously, this only shows you what Google tags are on your page. For example, there's also the Facebook Pixel Helper, which could show you the data on the Facebook Pixel. Or if you want to go more generally, there is a extension by ObservePoint, the tag Debugger, where you can see information in the developer tools. So we're gonna open this up and go to more tools here and developer tools. And then under ObservePoint, we just need to reload our page, and it should show us all the information from the different tools that are installed. So Google Analytics, Facebook, and Google Ads. Another plugin, if you want to dive even deeper and want to know where these codes are coming from, is the WASP extension, Web Analytics Solution Profiler. So let's reload this. And here you can actually see where different scripts are coming from. Might not all be marketing scripts, but definitely helpful for debugging. Obviously, there are more extensions out there if you want to dive deeper into certain tags that might be installed. So for example, there's also a Twitter Pixel Helper or a UET Tag Helper for Microsoft advertising. At this point, it is also a good idea to talk to anybody else who might be involved in tracking. So that might be your IT department that has previously installed some codes. That might be some other marketers or agencies that have installed codes on your page, just to get a general sense what is needed and what might be already installed or what might not be needed to migrate over to your Google Tag Manager. So in order to document all this, I have a little sheet here that you can make a copy of, which is a tag plan for our demo shop here. So you can change that image around, and then you can fill in some helpful information. So when was this tag implemented, or a date when you are actually auditing this. So let's put in here just today. And then this will actually change. So I'm going to paste this as just a value. Then we can say, is this actually still active on our page? Is it still being used? What is the type here? So is it a conversion event? Is it a base pixel? Is it an audience tag? Is it A/B testing and so on? So we have here an event tag, for example. Which tool is it? Google Analytics 4. And we might want to give it a name later on. So for example, Google Analytics 4 event button click. Then the description, some notes or other configurations. Then the responsibility, and if there are any to-dos. So for example, migration to GTM. So yes, this might seem a bit cumbersome at first, but it really will give you a clear vision before you actually start doing and then getting tripped up. Also, if you have a big tag migration going on, then you want to keep track of what has been migrated and what still needs to be removed from the site later once it is inside of Google Tag Manager. So as an example here, I come up with a little demo where I imported some tags here that we might want to install inside of our Google Tag Manager. And this will really give us a good idea of what we want on the page, but at the same time, what is the configuration? So we might not need to go into our Facebook advertising account and find out our pixel ID or into our Google Analytics account to find our tracking ID here. All right, I hope you can see how this can be super valuable for your clients, for anybody who comes after you, for anybody who works with the tracking. And here's a little challenge for you. Make a copy of the spreadsheet and actually go through your pages and think through what tracking you want to install. And in the next lesson, we're gonna take the first steps in order to deploy our first tags step by step, so you can actually take this plan and put it into action. All right, if we go over here to our Google Tag Manager account, we have already our first version deployed, but no tags are actually inside of this container. What do we want to install today? Well, that should be already in your tag plan. I have come up with an example here of a Google Analytics PageView tag that we want to deploy via Google Tag Manager. This should be our GA4 base tracking. And I have some notes here for the configurations. Where did I get this from? Well, I already have Google Analytics 4 installed on the website. So if I go to view page source, I should see the code. Yes, here it is, the GTag code right here. And we done a little bit of an audit of our account in the last lesson. Now that I know that Google Analytics 4 is in here, I actually want to migrate this over. So I mark this here as migration to GTM. So what are we doing next? Well, this is the configurations that we already need. This is just the little code here that we would need as the configuration. If you don't have Google Analytics 4 yet and you want to install it, then head over to analytics.google.com and open up a new account and a GA4 property. And then you will find your GA ID, your measurement ID under the setup assistant. And here we have tag installation. Then we have here our data streams, and you would need to set up a web data stream. And here we get our measurement ID. This is the ID that we want to send over in our code. All right, let's start out with the first step of our tag deployment process. Well, we actually went through the first step already. We prepared our implementation, we planned it out. Now we're actually going to implement it. This is the second step. So inside of Google Tag Manager, we can deploy our new tracking tag under the tag options, or just go here under add new tag. The first thing that I would urge you to fill out is the actual name. Now, remember, if you deploy a lot of tags, then this can get quite messy. So I would recommend that you use a naming convention to keep it consistent. So my naming convention, I already have this in here, is to say which tool it's from, what it actually does. So it deploys PageView and configuration, and it will be the scope. So in our case, it would be deployed on all pages. For some people, that might be a little bit excessive, but in my case, I always run really well with this because I know what the tag does just by looking at the name. The next step would be the tag configuration. When you click on this field, it gives you a lot of different tools that you can choose from. These are tag templates that let you deploy different tracking with Google Tag Manager. We obviously want to go with Google Analytics 4. This is our Google Analytics 4 configuration tag. This is the base tag that you need to install. And here you see this is kind of like a little form, so nothing with coding or so, like we saw it in our source here. It is actually just a form and you need to fill out the right fields. In our case, it's actually pretty easy. We just need to fill out this measurement ID field where we need to put in our measurement ID that we got from Google Analytics. So we have this already prepared here. Let's port this over. And we also want to send a PageView event with this tag. Next step would be to simply choose our trigger. Now triggers are the conditions under which you want to deploy your tag. We don't have any special configurations here. We just want to deploy this on all pages that are accessible to the user. So we can go with the all pages trigger, which will deploy on any site where Google Tag Manager is installed or our Google Tag Manager container is installed. Let's save this. And now we can try it out by going into the preview mode. So you click here on the preview button and you choose your page, click start, and then your preview mode will connect to your website. We'll open it up in a new tab. And then you see this little message, Debugger connected, and you should be able to now see in the tab that just opened that our Google Analytics for PageView tag has fired correctly on our page. So we see inside of the tag assistant that everything is deployed fine. On our page itself, we should be sending data over to Google Analytics. So inside of Google Analytics, we have a handy tool which is called the new debug mode. This is the debug view. And here we see that our page view is now deployed on our page. And it's apparently sending data over. Let me just test this again. I'm gonna click on this new and then see if we get anything in right now. That might take a while because there's also a batching functionality within Google Analytics 4. So we might not see it right away, but hopefully in a second here. And here we go, we get user engagement. But here are our page views. And now we see that there are 2 page views being sent over. Why is that? Well, there is a tracking code, a tag installed in the view page source here. And also it's deploying through Google Tag Manager. So it's totally natural that we would see 2 page views. But we know now that our Google Analytics code is deployed through Google Tag Manager. And therefore, we can get rid of this tracking script. Now, you should be doing this kind of simultaneously. But what I'm going to do right now is, now that we have verified our tag deployment, we go over to Google Tag Manager. And now we're going to submit this as a version to all our users. So it goes live onto our website. So I'm clicking here, submit, and we can give our version a name. I would always give a descriptor of what you have changed in this version. And then you can publish this. And that should go out now to all our users. So it's permanently installed on our website. But as I mentioned, we still have this code here on the page. So at this point, now that's being deployed through Google Tag Manager and we know that it's working correctly, we can actually go in and turn off the plugin that deploys this or get rid of the code inside of our theme files. So that's what I'm gonna do here inside of our theme files. I have the global site tag here and let's delete that, update our site. And now back on our page. I'm going to close the tag assistant actually here. So here we see that Google Tag Manager is deployed and our global site tag through Google Tag Manager. So that's shouldn't be in the page anymore. Let me just check here to make sure. Yep, we just have Google Tag Manager installed, or we can see only Google Tag Manager, and the global site tag is deployed through GTM. Let's do another test here and actually go into our analytics. And actually this debug view, we cannot use it because it only functions if we have the preview mode enabled or a connection to the tag assistant. So what I'm going to do right here is actually going over to the real-time reporting. And here we go. I'm in Berlin right now. We have 1 user from Berlin. That should be me, and our page views are counted. So we have Google Analytics 4 correctly installed on our website. It is now deployed to all our users. And we have stepped through the whole tag implementation process, from planning out our implementation to implementing it via Google Tag Manager, doing a little bit of Q&A, and then deploying it to all our users. Now, we also removed our hard-coded implementation of the G tag right here. And that's something you would need to do if you actually migrate. If you deploy completely from scratch, then you don't have to delete any kind of codes, but it would be necessary if you are actually migrating over to Google Tag Manager. So this is now active and we can continue with the next tags in our next lesson. So here I'm already in our demo shop, and on this side we have already the Google Analytics 4 tag deployed. Now we want to install some new tags. I put this actually in my tag plan here that I want to install the Facebook pixel. First of all, the general Facebook base tag, which would be the PageView, and then also a conversion tag, which would track if somebody submits a form, and this will send over a lead event to Facebook. I already have the configurations here of my pixel. If you want to test this out yourself, you can go over to your Facebook Events Manager, and then here you should find your Facebook pixel, or on the settings, there is your Facebook pixel, which you just need to copy. So let's implement this on the page. First of all, our page view, which would be deployed through all pages. We actually did this in the last lesson already. So we just go over to tags here and click new. And then we choose the tag configuration. And we have many different templates available. Unfortunately, the Facebook template is not one of them. Luckily, there is a community gallery where users can submit templates. And we also have one for the Facebook pixel. So right here, this is made by the Facebook incubator. And we can add this to our workspace. Need to confirm that we want to add this. And then we get our template. And here we can put in our pixel ID. Now we can ignore all of these different other settings for now and just go ahead and give this all a name. So we'll send over a page view on all pages. Obviously we need to still add our trigger here, which will deploy our tag on all pages. Save this. And let's put our browser into the special preview mode where we can see which tags are being deployed live on our website. And if you go back to the tag assistant here, we see our Facebook pixel now fired. This should be on all pages. So obviously we can do a spot check by going to some random page here and hopefully still seeing that our page view is still fired. That is the case. We also have the ability to look into the Facebook pixel helper, an extension that you can install to your browser, where we see the page view has been sent over. And then the last method is actually to go into your events manager, and there is something called test events. And here you can test a new event here by entering your URL into this little field and open this on the website. Now this will not happen on this tab because this is not connected to the tag assistant, but here if I should reload this, you should be able to see something here. Yes, we get a page view, and that happened on our Data Ninja page right there. So with that, we have the Facebook pixel already installed. In order to actually take this live to our website, we would deploy a version. But since we have one more tag that we want to install, we can actually push this to later on and publish this all at once. So let's take a look at the second part that we want to install here, which is our confirmation page. Now this tag is exemplary for all of the different other conversions that you might want to track. Really what you would need to find out is on your page, what are the events that you want to optimize for in order to get more traffic to these and make your users do this action. Now in our case, I just chose a form here, which is just one of many conversions that you could track. Obviously, if we are on an e-commerce store, which we are here, we could also track purchases, which is a little bit more complicated. So for this short and simple tutorial, I wanted to do this in the form. So let's take a look at actually what this action would look like. We go over here to the forms, and I have one prepared here, a Ninja form. And when we fill that out, we get to this confirmation page. Now, Facebook has many different standard events that you can send over that can be interpreted by Facebook. And you can look at them in the reference here under the Facebook developer reference. So they have add payment infos, for example, one action, or add to cart, add to wish list. This is all data that Facebook can then interpret. And therefore, it's a good idea to send over one of these standard events. And here we have a lead, which would fit quite well to our standard form that we are filling out here. So in order to send over such a standard event, we first need to create a trigger that only triggers on this confirmation page that we have right here. Now we already went to that confirmation page and we can look into our variables right here in order to see, for example, on this container loaded, how variables get filled. Now variables are kind of like placeholders which Google Tag Manager uses to evaluate whether it should fire your tags. So we can, for example, use the page path and say, if the page path is Ninja Forms confirm, then we want to fire our tag. So I'm going to copy this over here. And if we compare this with other page views, obviously the page path would change based on which page you are on. And therefore, we want to set our trigger to evaluate on this variable. So let's go ahead inside of Tag Manager, go to triggers and create a new trigger, which is not our all pages trigger anymore, but this will evaluate on our page view and it will only fire on Ninja Forms confirm. Now in the configurations of such a trigger, we can choose different events and we'll get to some of these events in a later lesson. What I wanted to do is fire this on the page view and then only on some page views where my variable, which was page path, contains, or let's go with equals, which is a bit more stricter, Ninja Forms confirm. So this is a trigger that we have now created, which should fire our tag only on our Ninja Forms confirm page. So let's go ahead and now configure our tag for Facebook. Again, I'm going to go to new here and then tag configurations. Let's search for our Facebook pixel. And we need to put in our ID again, which we have right here. And then we have our event names, and there is a standard event name we sent over PageView that's pre-configured like last time. But now we can see all of these different other standard events that are also available. And I wanted to go with lead. So this is what I'm going to choose. And then as the trigger, I'm going to choose our new defined trigger of Ninja Forms confirm. Let's give this all a name. This is still our Facebook pixel, for this time our lead event, which will fire on our confirm form page. Let's save this. We need to click on the preview button again in order to save this and then reload our page. And now it's connected. We are not yet on the form page, so I'm going to go over to Ninja Forms. And just to show you on our tag assistant, our Facebook lead form has not fired on this page view because when we click into it, you can actually see, well, you need to choose an event here. So you can actually see why did this not fire? Well, the page path does not equal Ninja Forms confirm. When we click here on values, it was Ninja Forms. So it's the page view before. Only if we now click on submit, we get to the confirmation page. And now we should actually see, yes, our Facebook lead fired and our container loaded. When we click into the lead, now gives us the check marks throughout and our trigger actually fired this tag. Because Ninja Forms confirm equals Ninja Forms confirm, which is right. If you want to see the names again, the page path equals our Ninja Form confirm. So we've now sent off the lead. Obviously, you would do a little bit of a spot check of, has this actually been sent in the tag assistant? Yes. Has this been registered here in the Facebook pixel helper? Seems so as well. And if we go to Events Manager, we also see now a lead event that has been put into our Events Manager under Test Events. So this is now sent over and you could build a custom conversion of that. It would also show up in your Facebook Ads Manager later on, and you can optimize your campaigns based on that. Well, actually, it's not yet quite implemented because we haven't yet created a version and published this to our website. That's also the last step that we actually need to do. So we'll go over to submit and add a version name here. And then when we click on publish, this will go live to all our users. So our Facebook pixel with our conversion tracking is now implemented. So back in our demo shop, we already have our tags firing, our Google Analytics Pro page view and our Facebook pixel. And when we go to our confirmation page of our lead form, we also fire our tag for Facebook. But what about this interaction tracking? For example, when we would track, if we go here to a product page and we would like to track if somebody clicks on this add to cart button. how would we be able to track this with the help of Google Tag Manager? Well, before we get started, I have already a new entry in my tag plan here where I want to fire an event tag to Google Analytics 4. And this is what we are going to try to achieve right now. Now, auto event triggers are these special kind of triggers within Google Tag Manager that we can see right here that are able to pick up interactions such as clicks, user engagement, like element visibility, form submit, scroll triggers, YouTube videos, but also JavaScript and history change events. Now, it's also important to understand that there are multiple ways of tracking interactions on our page. So for example, with our form submit, we could use the form submit listener, but we already said that the page view, the thank you page after the form, is already sufficient to track our lead inside of the Facebook pixel. So there are always multiple ways, but today I'm going to show you how to utilize one of these event triggers. And for our purpose, we obviously want to go with one of the click triggers here. We have two. One is for a specific link click. So a link would be something that leads to another page. But in our case, we just go with the all elements click trigger. I find this more versatile and it's usually what I choose when I work with click triggers. So let's go ahead and click on all elements. And what we're going to do right now is to generate a generic click trigger. So this will not have any tags attached. We just want to see how this click trigger, this auto event click trigger, will react in the real world, because auto event triggers actually have two functionalities. One is the click trigger itself, but then there's also a listener functionality that actually listens to interactions. So I'm just going to give this a name here. Just call this click, and this will fire on all clicks that are on the page. We're not going to attach this to a tag, but before we go on to preview here, I would like to enable some variables that I have stored here under the built-in variables. And these are our click variables that will be filled by our click trigger. So here we have all our variables. We can just enable them and see how they get filled by our click trigger. So once they're all enabled, we go on the preview button and then reload our preview and debug mode. And this time I'm going to go straight to the Houdini zipper page with zipper page. And right here, we should be in the tag assistant. We see our page has loaded. But what happens, or what should happen, is when I click, for example, on the title of this page, so I'm going to click here, I should see inside of my tag assistant here that we have a new click that was registered. And our variables get filled as well. So click classes, click element, click ID, click text, and so on. So I just clicked on our title, and therefore the title is Hoodie and Zipper. So for example, if I click into this field, or let's click into this field right here, we should have more clicks that came in. And we see here that we click one time on the search field, which gets filled out by the click classes, or our quantity field, which got picked up. And now the ultimate test, what we actually want to track is the add to cart button. So I'm going to click on this, and our site actually reloads or goes to the next page. But that shouldn't be a problem with our new tag assistant here, because we can see the 17th click was our click on the add to cart button. And here we have it actually in the click classes, single add to cart button. That should be our add to cart click, as we can also see it in the click text. Now, the next step is to refine our trigger, or to choose one of these variables that is actually unique to our add to cart button. And we can do this by going through the previous clicks that we have generated and seeing what is unique about this add to cart button click. So I'm going to go to 15 here. This is obviously a bit longer and it says cart. We have here a click to our quantity field, and this has a different click ID. And here we don't have much information, but the click classes gets filled out by the search field. Now, if I go back here to the 17, and it's pretty clear that one item that is quite unique is that the click classes has single add to cart filled out in the click classes. So that should not be the case for any of the others. Let me just click here through here again and see, yep, that is pretty unique for our 17th click. Single add to cart button is within the click classes. So what I'm going to do right now is copy this and then head back to my Google Tag Manager and turn my generic click trigger which just has the listener functionality, into a specific one, which would only turn true when the user clicks on an add to cart button. So I'm going to make this an add to cart click trigger. Well, we have the click already on there. And let's go ahead and now refine our trigger from all clicks to just some clicks. And we have all our variables here available, our click classes variables. And we're going to go with the click classes, which should contain, and we have many different other matching options here, but we already made up our mind. It should contain single add to cart button. By the way, you could also choose a completely different approach and say, well, let's go with the click text, because the click text is also very unique here and it doesn't get overwritten or accidentally picked up by any of the other events. So add to cart could also be a solution. But for now, I'm just going to go with the click classes and save this. Now, the next step is to attach our new click trigger to a tag. And this time we want to fire a Google Analytics event tag to our Google Analytics 4 instance. So we're going to go for new here and then click on tag configurations and then search for our Google Analytics GA4 event. As the configuration tag, you can simply choose the tag that you have set up at the beginning of our course, which is the GA4 PageView tag. And then we come to some configurations. So Google Analytics 4 has a new data model, which entirely is based on events. So all we can send in are really events, and we can give our event a name. So for example, any kind of click, and then we can send over more data, more attributes of that click via this event parameters menu. We can enter anything we want here. So for example, if you had a parameter called click text, then we might want to fill this out dynamically with our variables that we have available. For example, the click text right here. And we could attach any more parameters that we might want. For example, which product was added to the cart or what page URL was the user on right now when he clicked the button. But I'm just going to go with the click text for demonstration's sake here. And then we attach our trigger, which we have already prepared right here. So let's give this all a name. This is a GA4 event tag for add to cart. Let's save this and now go into the preview mode. Okay, back on our page, I'm going to click the add to cart button. And hopefully now, instead of the tag assistant, we should find a click right here. And we see our Google Analytics 4 event add to cart click fired. Now, if we are inside of Google Analytics 4, you should be able to go to your debug view right here. And then you see all the different events that were automatically tracked. But one of them is actually our click right here. We can see all the different parameters that were sent over automatically, but also our click text, which is our property that we've entered, and it's filled out correctly with add to cart. So the data has been sent by Google Tag Manager and it now arrived inside of Google Analytics 4. That seems to work fine, but let's make sure that this actually only happens when I click on the add to cart button. I'm going to click here and on the price and here, which should have a lot of clicks inside of Google Tag Manager. And when we click on them, we see that no tags fired. And that is great because we have configured our trigger correctly to only fire on button clicks, on add to cart button clicks. Let's see if this is actually dynamic. So if I go to a completely different other page here and click on add to cart, we also get a click and our add to cart fired as well. So can be pretty sure that our add to cart click has been registered correctly with our Google Tag Manager auto event trigger for clicks. But the cool thing about Google Tag Manager is as well that you can reuse triggers. So we have this trigger now set up. We could configure a tag to send data to another tool. So for example, we have here Facebook. Nothing is stopping us from going in and creating a Facebook tag, just like last time, with our Facebook ID. Now the ID I don't have saved, but I have my tag plan right here. So let's copy that, put it in here. And then we have our event name, which we can't choose dynamically unless we send over a custom event. But we have a standard event called add to cart. So let's choose that and attach our trigger here. So Facebook event add to cart. And let's try this out as well. Let me actually go into the events manager here and test our pixel on our demo shop. So reload this as well. And we're going to click on the add to cart button. And we see our Facebook event now fired as well. And in the events manager, we see our add to cart click that has now been picked up by Facebook ads as well. And we can build a custom audience or create a custom conversion if we choose so. So this has been created inside of Tag Manager. All you need to do in order to take this actually live is to go over to your Tag Manager and submit this as a version to all your users. And this is how you can create auto event tracking with the help of Google Tag Manager to fire your tags upon interactions. Hey there, Measure Geeks, Julian here, and I wanted to invite you to pat yourself on the back for a job well done. We have gone through quite the journey over the last few lessons, from learning what Google Tag Manager is all about, to installing it, setting up our tag plan, and then implementing our tags, triggers, and variables. We even set up conversion tracking for Facebook and took a look at auto event tracking. Quite a bit of stuff we covered here. Surely you want to even learn more about the capabilities of Google Tag Manager and what it makes possible. Well, where do you go from here? Obviously there are many paths to go down, but I always advertise that GTM is not a book skill you will need to do in order to learn and master this tool. That's why I usually recommend setting yourself up with some challenges, something that excites you and that drives you to do something, takes you go into action. In terms of Google Tag Manager, it means that you actually practice what you have learned and push yourself to learn new things. Now, how to do so? Well, the best way to learn would be an actual project. Maybe start with implementing GTM on a website of your client or your friend. If they give you access to it, they probably appreciate the tracking work that you do for them, the tracking help that you give them. But I know not everybody has a website available or a client that they can just test their new learned skills on. So the next best thing would actually be to create your own little sandbox, a website just like our demo shop, which isn't a real project, but you can play around with things and try out new tracking techniques. You'll find a link to a blog post that I've written down below in the description, where you'll find out how to set up your own demo store, your own little website by yourself. And then, well, just ask yourself, what would a client, or what am I myself interested in gathering data? What do I actually want to measure? And then go from there, get interested in tracking techniques and install them onto your website. For starters, on this channel you find many different videos on the popular tracking techniques, and I walk you through many of them step by step. But again, don't just watch the videos, but build them out and actually follow along, so in the end you have a tracking deployment that you have learned. So for example, maybe start out with all the different triggers that we have skipped in the last lessons. How about tracking what is visible on the screen with the element visibility trigger, or tracking 404 errors? Or maybe you are wondering how you are able to prevent certain tags from firing, so you could look into blocking triggers or trigger groups. Simply take a look at all the catalog that is already out there and start implementing this stuff day by day, step by step. Now, what if you get stuck? Well, everybody does, and that's just part of learning itself. For every problem, there is a solution out there. This YouTube channel is just one of many resources from the cool Google Tag Manager community that has gathered around this tool, writing about this, doing podcasts and so on. So I've gathered all these resources in a handy guide that you can also download down below, where you will be able to find out all the resources that I would point you to in order to get your problem solved, communities that you could join, for example. And I really think these steps are quite good to get you started with continuing your measurement journey on your own and make progress going beyond the basics in Google Tag Manager. But if you are one of those people who needs a clearer structure and some guidance going forward, I want to invite you to join our GTM Beyond the Basics course. It's exactly what we just talked about and what I would recommend, a challenge-based course to help you go beyond the basics in GTM. We provide you with your own demo shop, which you can install your tracking on and try out new tracking techniques. then we'll give you challenges to solve them and see if you can actually handle the situation. And if not, we always have a solution video that would talk you through it step by step. But I would recommend to actually try out to do it yourself, because there are always multiple ways of implementing tracking onto your website, and maybe my solution is not even the best one, so maybe you come up with something cool and new and can be proud of yourself. In the end of the course, you can submit all your challenges and answer our quiz, and then you can earn a certificate from Measure School to show around, to brag to others that you have gone beyond the basics in Google Tag Manager. And as a special bonus, you will also get recordings of past trainings that I've done, where we go a little bit deeper into some of the aspects of Google Tag Manager. So does that sound something you'd be interested in? Well, head over to measureschool.com/beyondthebasics and check out how you can sign up to this course. And even if you don't want to go beyond the basics, we always come up with new content around tracking, measurement, and analytics every week on this channel. So I'd love to see you again next week. Make sure to subscribe right over there, and also check out this video explaining some different techniques on how to use form tracking. Now, my name is Julian. Till next time.